guys, I'm the awesome Mr. J, and today we're going to be doing an average player's review of New World. I'd call myself an average player because I have a regular 9 to 5 job and I don't have all the hours in the world to spend sweating out games like some other YouTubers do. I currently have 66 hours of playtime since released, and I'm level 31 and have taken a decent amount of time upgrading most of my trade skills. I'm currently only just talking to all the syndicates about joining an alliance in the main story. I don't want to say too much though, because I don't want to give too many spoilers, but for those who do know, you'll know by me saying that where I am in the story. So here's what I think of New World. Queue times, well, obviously I had to talk about it, let's be honest. Yes, it has been a problem, server queue times being absolutely ridiculous on launch for about a week, and it didn't do the game any favours, but since being fixed by Amazon Games, they've increased server caps and queue limits. Thanks to this increase so late after release, a good proportion of gamers may never return to New World, leaving once densely populated servers abandoned wastelands. And for a strongly PvP game, there won't be much PvP going on these dead servers. The current state of queues is amazing because of the increases I believe should have always been there from the start. Queues are now almost non-existent. Unfortunately, once you actually get into the game, the problems continue. Many bugs were reported, such as glitching through the world after vaulting over fences, and endlessly jumping onto rocks after vaulting as well, just to name a few. And in my opinion, they didn't take the time to fix some of these bugs that seem so simple after the beta. They should have taken so much more time so that the game would be in a much more releasable state. Okay. Even if we ignore the queue times and seemingly endless bugs, if they haven't affected your gameplay, then what might have you experienced in New World? An excellent weapon leveling system that provides many options and lots of balance, with clear roles that players can assign themselves, such as DPS, tank, healer, bruiser builds, that will offer a variety of different gameplay while playing New World. There will be many different paths that you can go down for a variety of builds. I think there's maybe 4 paths per weapon that you can do, with different skills and different passives giving different boosts. Unfortunately, leveling weapons does take a considerable amount of time, and for the average player you won't be able to experience all of these different types of gameplay for quite some time if you want to experience the weapons at full power, because it will take a long time to spec them correctly, because you need to level them up to be able to spec them. If however you wanted to respec them, it would just cost you some gold and some Azoth, but respecs are free up to level 10 of the weapon, I believe. The time taken refining the different trade skills systems is clear to see, as the game heavily relies on this system to upgrade gear throughout and to equip better gear yourself in the Land of Eternum. Trade skills grinding, however, is very tedious and takes way too long for an average player that would stop playing at this point, as they can play something else and enjoy themselves more given limited time to play due to other commitments. Combat is less than amazing, as enemies are just reskinned all throughout the game and have only a limited selection of fighting combinations, which does become very predictable after they've attacked you about twice. Because you'll then just think, oh, it was that mob that I fought, and this is a reskinned version of that, so now I know exactly how it's going to attack me. But surely, you would say, bosses have to be better and unique. Wrong! Bosses are actually also just reskinned enemies that have a lot more health and do a lot more damage and are often scaled in size by about 150% and are just absolutely humongous. If they aren't scaled up in size, they just have crazy passive abilities, such as we find in the Armorine expedition with Foreman Narakashima. I believe that's how you say it. He's just got a passive, and his skills just are insane. He shouldn't be able to do that, or at least he needs to look different, because he just looks like another Playgeist. And you think, really? Come on, Amazon. You have all this money, and you can't think of a few more character skins for unique boss fights or unique skills for boss fights that make them challenging and have to have skill to defeat, rather than just, if I keep healing my tank, I can do this boss fight. Moving on to trade markets, they don't have a lot of value on items because the markets were absolutely flooded as players crafted thousands of the same items to level up trade skills. So markets currently are now full of arrows and random armor and some food items as players have leveled up various trade skills. This means that trying to sell anything you actually want to sell is very difficult, because sometimes they will be components for crafting various trade skill items, which means they'll either be ridiculously inflated in price or they'll be ridiculously worthless. Sometimes something that you think would maybe get you a couple of gold will only get you 10p, or whatever the gold comparison would be. Personally, the world of New World is just too big for average players due to there being no mounts. Yes, this is something that Amazon Games has mentioned quite a few times, that they don't want to add mounts because they feel the world would become too small otherwise, but they've already created a world that's too big, running kilometers and kilometers. I believe that's the metric scale that we're using in this anyway for measurement of distance. Running a very long way anyway, between settlements or new areas or locations, and then the cost of fast travel just doesn't help us out at all either. A limit of 1,000 Azoth is ridiculous, as you're given so much more than 1,000 Azoth while even just completing the main story. And if you don't use it, you just hit an Azoth cap and you lose out on all the Azoth that you would have gained in the first place. This means that you have to be really precise with where you set your recall, that you know that you'll need to go to Everfall or to Monarch's Bluff, and if you don't, then you're just going to be spending too much Azoth and never have enough, even though you're given so much. They really haven't thought about how to reduce running times, even if they just brought in land mounts such as horses or wolves or bears. Maybe they have some attacking mounts as well as just passive mounts that are just for movement. I don't know, it would be an idea for them. But they just have to find a way to reduce running times. Yes, they try and encourage you to cut some trees or mine a few rocks along the way to kind of add to the experience and level up your trade skills, which does take an awful long amount of time, but it just isn't good enough sometimes. You need to add something else to entice players to stay, because it just takes too long for an average player like myself or other people that I know. Unless you have all the time in the world to grind out the game 24 hours a day or 12 hours a day, however long that you have to play it, you just will find yourself playing it for days and days and days. And Amazon, I get that's the idea, but please shorten the running times between areas or add mounts. Please, we need them. Overall though, I'd like to say, guys, that New World is a great game to experience, even though I've moaned about it for the last few minutes. I'm sorry. I would recommend it to anyone who has lots of time on their hands, but to an average player who can only get on for maybe a few hours a day, New World will take you a long time to complete, and you'll really want to experience it with a group, maybe for friends or people that you can meet in looking for group discords or things like that. Because this will make your experience of New World so much more enjoyable, because running between areas just takes way too long, and if you can just talk to people in the meantime about what they're doing or where they're at in the game or experiencing dungeons with them, you know, it just will add to your experience rather than trying to complete this by yourself. Especially if you wanted to try and complete this as a healer by yourself, you won't be able to, basically, because healers just don't do enough damage comparatively to tanks or DPS. Yes, I know that should be the case, but if you want to be a healer, you need a group, really. Other types of classes may be able to complete the game with less people, but otherwise you'll struggle, and you'll just need something to do while you're running between locations, otherwise you'll just find yourself getting very bored. Anyway guys, this has been my average player's review of New World. Thank you for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed and learnt something. If you aren't already subscribed, make sure that you subscribe and like the video. It really helps me out if you've learnt something from the video. And make sure you check out our Let's Play of New World and see how we've been getting on in our journey through Eternum.